hear me out before you think I sound a little dumb here, but I think that Georgia's game here against Kentucky up in Lexington this week is kind of the first real test. Whoa, hold the brakes, Ryan. Georgia played Clemson on a neutral field in week 1 to start the season. Number 14th ranked Clemson. Well, guess what? They thumped Clemson. And it took them 2 quarters to get rolling, and it wasn't without its struggles early in the game, but Georgia obliterated Clemson in the second half. 28-3 was the second half score. The final score was 34-3. So they weren't really tested in a way that made them look like they had to struggle for 4 quarters or 3 quarters. It was just 2 quarters, and they won those 2 quarters anyway. So don't come at me with that. And neutral field, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it's probably about a 70% Georgia crowd there, and that's a place that they play a lot. Tennessee Tech, obviously not a test, and Georgia gets Trevor Etienne back, so they're at more full strength on offense. But this week against Kentucky, up in Lexington, we're heading out on Saturday morning, head up there, making a little, it's not going to be a day trip, but man, that'd be something if it was. This is their first road game in the SEC this year. And I know, and I'm going to go through it, why I think that Georgia's going to win this game and why I don't think it's going to be a close game, and how covering that 24.5 point spread is probably pretty doable for Georgia here. Kentucky just looked worse in week 2. Way worse in week 2 than it did in week 1. But it's not to be something that should not be underestimated, and I'm just harping on what Kirby has to say, and I've got a couple of the things that Kirby has had to say about this. But a road SEC game is tough. I've got examples. I've got experiences that I've been at these things, and you see it happen. Yes, road SEC games are very difficult. Road games in general are very difficult. But this is at night in Lexington. Lexington does have a good crowd. They're obviously going to show out for playing the number 1 team in the country in Georgia. I do think this is Georgia's first test. A year ago, Georgia's first real test was at Auburn. It was on the road in the SEC. Then in 2022, it was at Missouri. That was ended up being Georgia's first real test. That road game against Missouri, a little bit midway through the year. Right? That was like, whoa, okay. It happens. Right? And that's exactly why. I could talk about that Missouri game. No, the Missouri crowd did not really think that they were going to win until there was a chance it was going to win, and they almost did, right? In 2022, when Georgia went up there and won 26-22 with the 4th quarter touchdown. Their environment is not known for being crazy, but I tell you what, that environment in Missouri, that night when they believed they had a chance to win, it was up there, right? They were excited. They're playing that third down music. I'm gonna give you my interpretation of that, because there's other schools that use this as their third down music. But that song where it's like da 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 da, that was awful, and I'm probably never gonna do that ever again on here. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about why this Kentucky game is Georgia's first real challenge, right? Newsletter. It's not a challenge to sign up for that. It's quick. It's in the description of this video down below. I have it down below. Just takes a few seconds to sign up. You just got to give us your email address. That's really all it is. It's a free way to be notified about everything going on with the Georgia Bulldogs, and we're pushing out a lot of content. Trust me, I'm one of the 3 that's pushing out this content for you guys, so make sure you're checking out our newsletter. But this Kentucky game is the first challenge of several challenges coming this year. It's going to be their first road test. Well, guess what? I don't want to call this a warm-up game because Georgia could lose, and I don't think that's going to happen. Georgia could lose, and I will break down more of the actual game stuff here in a couple minutes with Brock Vandagriff, with Carson Beck, all that. But I want to get some of the semantics out of the way. The truth is that Georgia has to play Alabama on the road in a couple weeks, and they've got to play Texas on the road, and they've got to deal with Auburn still. Right, you're one of its rivals. You got to deal with Ole Miss on the road. There's a lot more challenging stuff going to happen for Georgia later this year than this week. But this is the warm-up game. How does your team respond to a hostile environment, to an environment that doesn't want you there, that wants to beat you? We can't know that always. In 2023, we did learn. Okay, Georgia's got some guts. Carson Beck's got some guts. Georgia's down in the second half. Auburn's winning in the 4th quarter. Or I don't remember exactly there, but Auburn had a lead for a long time in the second half. And what happened? Georgia had to win in the 4th quarter. They had to put together a game-winning drive with 3 minutes left. Carson Beck to Brock Bowers connection ended up ringing true, and Carson looked really good there in that second half. And you learned, okay, Carson Beck can help lead a Georgia offense that's down and score touchdowns in the clutch. in a hostile environment. You learn that about the team. Well, we know that about certain players on this Georgia team. We know that Malachi Starks can make a tackle that ended up being game-saving, right, against Missouri's running back in the first half of that game 2 years ago when they stopped him at the line of scrimmage and Georgia held Missouri to a field goal instead of a touchdown. That was a big deal. We know about certain players and we know they're going to step up, but each team is different. The 2022 team is different than the 2021 team, is different than the 2020 team, and this 2024 team is no different than that. In fact, that it's different than those other teams. We don't know how they respond to these environments yet. So yes, we are learning that. And we get to see Georgia's offense close to full strength. Obviously, no Roderick Robinson. I think Oscar Delp will probably play. Nate Frazier will probably be fine. It doesn't seem like Georgia's dealing with any. I think the most significant injury Georgia's dealing with right now, which is just an ankle sprain from Michael Williams. So I don't think he'll be playing this week. But on offense, this will be our first chance to see Georgia's offense against an SEC opponent and an SEC opponent on the road close to full strength with ETN, right? Roderick Robinson, obviously, we think he's going to be back in a few weeks, dealing with that turf toe injury, maybe that Alabama game after Georgia gets a much-needed bye before heading to Alabama, right? So maybe we'll see that. But with ETN in the fold, Georgia's run game is a little bit more complete, and he made some plays against Tennessee Tech. And Georgia's offense, obviously Carson Beck threw 5 touchdowns. He looked crisp. At a certain point, he was 11 for 11 for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is one hell of a way to start a football game. It's just tough to judge against the Tennessee Tech team. Clemson, it's tough to judge what they were, right? We don't know exactly yet. Clemson ended up really, really balling out in that second week against App State. But how good is Clemson's defense? They still allowed 20 to App State, right? So I want to know how good Clemson's defense is as the year goes on, because we, entering the season was under the impression it was going to be one of the best defenses in college football. So, is Georgia's offense going to look electric and have explosive plays? Explosive plays matter. Why has Georgia struggled in some of these road SEC games? Lack of explosive plays. It happens in that Auburn game. It's happened on the road. It happened at Kentucky in 2022. Weird weather game, right? Guess what? Georgia didn't have a ton of explosive plays. And the score was like 13-9, 13-6, something like that. It was one of those weird games where only one touchdown scored by the Dawgs. I don't think that this game turns into that. All right. Look, 2 games of this Kentucky tape. Brock Vandagriff and this Kentucky offense. I'll talk about the offense first. I'm not a Brock Vandagriff hater. I have no bad blood for Brock Vandagriff. I've just never really saw the 5-star. It's my opinion. I'm an analyst. This is part of the reason why I have this job is because I make these opinions and I have these takes and they're usually right, and that's kind of the whole point. I just never really thought that Brock Vandagriff was a 5-star. 4-star, sure, but against 1A private schools, he ran around, he dominated, he threw for a lot of yards, he ran for a lot of yards, and he had touchdowns each way, but I just didn't see it. He wasn't doing anything super high level in terms of up here, and I thought he was a little bit overrated as an athlete. And I think that that's been on display as he's been the starting quarterback for Kentucky for these first 2 weeks. Not as fast as I remembered, right? He looks a little bit more like DJU running, not Ben Roethlisberger, but a little bit slower like that, kind of a big body quarterback running. That's, or like a Riley Leonard, yeah. He's reminding me more of that kind of running, like just slow, powerful, not the speedster guy that could just kind of run like a deer by you. But this Kentucky offense has got weapons. I'm a big fan of Barryon Brown. I think that they've got some other guys that are real good football players. They need to get the ball out in space to these players. They need to get Brock Vandagriff using his legs. And that's just not what is happening. And against South Carolina, he was 3 for 10 passing for 30 yards and a pick. It's just, if that's going to happen against Georgia, it's going to be 48-3, 49-3, something like that. Georgia's defense will be the best defense that Kentucky plays all year, and it's going to be a defense that's very familiar with its quarterback and knows how to game plan and literally has practiced against this quarterback for years. A lot of the guys, at least, know Brock Vandagriff and they know his tendencies. So I just think for Kentucky offensively, they're going to struggle. For Georgia offensively, like I said before, this is an opportunity. How crisp are you going to look? This is the test. Are you going to squander this and only put up 20 and they just get out of there? I think that a big offensive game would be a good confidence boost for a Georgia team that's about to go play a good offensive team in Alabama in a couple weeks on the road at night. Look, these environments are hostile, and I think it's a big test. But I told you why I think Georgia's going to pass it with flying colors. Thanks for watching.